Fleet Commander Vorr stared at the holographic projection of the small blue planet, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence, a sure sign of his growing irritation. 27 stellar cycles of impeccable service to the Xenonite Dominion, and this was his reward. Babysitting Admiral Prax Krell on what could only be described as the most idiotic mission in galactic history. "With all due respect, Admiral," Vorr said, trying desperately to keep the sarcasm from his voice and failing spectacularly, "have you perhaps suffered some kind of recent head trauma that I'm unaware of? Or is violating the Galactic Council's single most important directive just your idea of a fun weekend?" The Admiral Krell, a towering figure with iridescent scales and far too many medals for someone who'd never seen actual combat, merely flicked his tail dismissively. "The directive is outdated, Commander. A relic from more superstitious times." "Superstitious?" Vorr's voice rose an octave, causing several bridge officers to flinch. 13 species have attempted contact with Earth. 13. Do you know how many of those species still exist? 3. And those 3 survived only because they managed to escape before the humans fully woke up. Krell's mandibles clicked in what passed for a smile among his kind. Primitive creatures with primitive weapons. Our technology is eons beyond theirs. That's what the Arcturians said right before their entire battle fleet was converted into what humans apparently call modern art, Vorr muttered. The Admiral slithered closer to the hologram, his eyes gleaming with ambition. "The Council wastes this opportunity. Think of what we could learn. Their adaptability alone is worth studying. Their bodies repair themselves without medical intervention. They can survive radiation that would kill most species. They withstand temperature ranges that are frankly absurd. Yes, and they also invented thousands of ways to kill each other before they even left their atmosphere," Vorr countered. "They created weapons specifically designed to cause pain rather than just efficient death. Who does that?" "Which is precisely why we'll take them while they sleep," Krell announced triumphantly. "My scientists have developed a way to maintain their dormant state during extraction and transport." Vorr felt a cold dread settle in all 3 of his stomachs. "This is a direct violation of Council law." "This is scientific progress," Krell corrected. "Besides, the Council need never know. We take 3 specimens, study them in controlled conditions, and return them before anyone realizes they're gone. What could possibly go wrong?" Vorr wanted to list exactly what could go wrong, preferably alphabetically and with detailed historical references, but he knew that look in the Admiral's eyes. The mission was happening with or without his approval. "Fine," he hissed through clenched spiracles. "But when this turns into a complete disaster, and it will, I want my formal objection noted in the ship's log." "Duly noted, Commander. Now prepare the stealth shuttles. We leave in 1 rotation." As Krell strutted away, Vorr turned back to the innocuous-looking planet. Such a small world to inspire such terror among the spacefaring races. Such primitive beings to warrant the Galactic Council's most serious warning. "Don't wake the humans," he whispered to himself, reciting the ancient warning. "May the void help us all." The extraction team's shuttle hovered silently above the human settlement, its quantum displacement field rendering it completely invisible to the primitive detection systems below. Commander Vorr watched from the bridge of the Celestial Dominance as 3 of his best operatives prepared to enter what the humans called a cryo facility. "Status report," he barked into the comm, tapping his clawed fingers against the console. "Stealth systems at optimal capacity, Commander," came the reply from Lieutenant Dax. "Their detection technology is quaint. They're still using electromagnetic scanning, practically Stone Age stuff." "Don't underestimate them," Vorr warned. "That's exactly how the Proxima Collective lost an entire reconnaissance division." Admiral Krell glided onto the bridge, his ceremonial armor gleaming under the ship's lights. "Ah, Commander, just in time to witness history." "Or disaster," Vorr muttered under his breath. On the view screen, the extraction team deployed their molecular transport beams, cutting through the facility's roof like it was made of vapor. Their exosuits, equipped with the latest gravitational manipulation tech, allowed them to float effortlessly down into the building. Target acquired, reported Lieutenant Dax. We've located the cryostasis chambers. 3 subjects as requested. Affirmative technology, another voice chimed in. The humans have simply lowered their core body temperature and slowed their metabolic functions. No quantum suspension, no temporal stasis fields, just cold sleep. Vorr shook his head. And yet they survive it. Remarkable. Commencing extraction, Dax continued. The team worked with practiced precision, their neural interfaces allowing them to control the transport beams with mere thoughts. 3 cryogenic pods were carefully lifted, their power systems seamlessly transferred to the shuttle's generators without so much as a flicker in life support readings. Extraction complete. Returning to ship. Krell's mandibles spread wide in what passed for a triumphant smile. Flawless. You see, Commander, your concerns were unwarranted. We haven't left their solar system yet, Vorr reminded him. I'll celebrate when we're back in Xenonite space with these humans still dormant. The shuttle docked with surgical precision, and within moments the cryo chambers were being transported to the science deck. Vorr insisted on personally escorting them, his hand never straying far from his phase disruptor. The science deck was a gleaming testament to Xenonite technological superiority. Automated analysis systems, quantum computers, and molecular restructuring devices lined the walls. At the center stood Dr. Mira Tuvok, her forearms crossed in obvious disapproval, her normally blue skin flushed purple with agitation. I want it known that I object to this entire operation, she said immediately upon seeing Vorr. These creatures should be left alone. Your objection mirrors my own, Dr. Vorr replied. Unfortunately, Admiral Krell outranks us both. Dr. Tuvok moved to inspect the cryo chambers as they were carefully positioned in the examination area. Her eyes narrowed as she ran a molecular scanner over each one. Their physiology is unusual, she noted, genuine scientific curiosity momentarily overriding her ethical concerns. Their cellular structure contains redundancies I've never seen before, and their neural pathways fascinating. Just keep them asleep, Vorr instructed. Study them, satisfy the Admiral's curiosity, and then we return them. Understood? That might be problematic, Tuvok said slowly, her scanner beeping with increasing urgency. Their metabolic rates are increasing. The female's brain activity is spiking. What? How? Vorr demanded, moving closer. I thought you said the transfer was seamless. It was. Tuvok exclaimed, frantically adjusting controls, but they're responding to something in our atmosphere. Perhaps the higher oxygen content, or maybe the trace elements of xenon. Their bodies are adapting. A low hiss emanated from one of the pods as its seal began to disengage. Stop it, Vorr ordered. I can't. Tuvok's fingers flew across her control panel. They've integrated with our systems somehow. The pod thinks it's completed its cycle. The first pod's cover slid open with a soft pneumatic whoosh. Inside, a human female with dark hair began to stir, her eyes moving rapidly beneath closed lids. Impossible, whispered Krell, who had just entered the lab. They shouldn't be able to interface with technology they've never encountered. The second pod's lights shifted from blue to green. Then the third. Well, Vorr said, drawing his weapon and setting it to stun, I believe this is where I get to say I told you so. The first human's eyes snapped open. She blinked once, twice, looked directly at Vorr with no trace of fear, only calculating assessment, and said something in her native tongue. Dr. Tuvok's translator processed the words and repeated them aloud in standard Xenonite. Where am I, and why do you have so many eyes? Within 6 hours, Commander Vorr's perfectly ordered life had descended into what humans apparently called a total cluster something. The translator had politely declined to provide the second word. They did what? he demanded, staring at the security officer whose exoskeleton was dripping with some viscous purple substance. They weaponized our nutritional synthesizer, sir, the officer replied miserably. When we attempted to enter containment chamber B, they had somehow reprogrammed it to spray high-density protein solution. It hardened on contact with our exoplates. Vorr pinched the bridge of his nasal cavity. Let me understand this correctly. Within 4 hours of regaining consciousness on an alien spacecraft, surrounded by technology they have never seen, they not only figured out how to use our food replicator but also converted it into a weapon. Yes, Commander. And they've barricaded themselves in the auxiliary medical bay. Using what? Vorr hardly wanted to know the answer. The examination tables, sir. They dismantled them and used the components to seal the doors. The officer hesitated. They're also communicating with each other using our internal comm system. How many security protocols did they have to bypass to access that system? 17, sir. 17? Our best cyber specialists need authorization codes and genetic verification to access those systems. The humans just pressed buttons until something worked, the officer admitted. They appear to operate on a principle of random experimentation rather than logical progression. Dr. Tuvok hurried into the command center, looking simultaneously terrified and fascinated. Commander, you won't believe what they've done now. Try me, Vorr said dryly. They've accessed our ship's historical database and are learning our language. Their ability to pattern match and adapt is extraordinary. The male human named Aiden Parker has already mastered basic Xenonite phonetics. Wonderful, Vorr muttered. So now they can insult us directly instead of through a translator. Admiral Krell burst in, his scales standing on end with agitation. Commander, this situation is unacceptable. I ordered a full tactical team to recapture the humans 10 minutes ago. Why are they not back in containment? As if on cue, the ship's announcement system activated. A human voice spoke in halting but recognizable Xenonite. Attention, alien kidnappers. This is Aiden Parker. Thanks for the tactical team. We needed the extra supplies. Your guys are fine, just sticky. And naked. Sorry about their uniforms, but we needed the material. Also, your weapons are really cool, but seriously over-engineered. We simplified them. The announcement cut off abruptly. Vorr turned to Krell, not bothering to hide his smirk. You were saying, Admiral? Krell's mandibles clacked in fury. Deploy drones. He asked the entire section. Sir, the security officer interjected timidly, we already tried that. They captured the drones and repurposed them. Repurposed them how? Krell demanded. A small maintenance drone zoomed into the command center, circled Admiral Krell's head 3 times while emitting what sounded suspiciously like a human laughing. He sprayed him with some kind of sparkly substance, then zoomed away before anyone could react. Krell stood there, dripping with glitter, his expression one of pure shock. They've named that one sparkles, the security officer added helpfully. They send it to deliver messages. Commander Dr. Tuvok interrupted, checking her datapad. The humans are requesting to speak with ship leadership. Parker says, and I quote, "This is getting silly. Let's talk like grown-ups." Vorr sighed deeply. Put him through. The main screen activated, revealing Aiden Parker, a tall human male with dark skin and startlingly intelligent eyes. He was wearing what appeared to be a makeshift version of a Xenonite officer's uniform, clearly constructed from the stolen tactical team gear. Greetings, Commander Parker squinted at what was presumably a translator. Vorr? Did I pronounce that right? Your language has way too many clicks. Close enough, Vorr acknowledged, surprised. You've caused quite a disruption, Mr. Parker. Well, what did you expect? We went to sleep on Earth and woke up in a sci-fi movie. Speaking of which, your cryogenic maintenance protocols need serious updating. That transition was rough. The female human appeared beside Parker. She was holding what looked like 3 different Xenonite technologies fused together into some kind of device that Vorr couldn't identify, which was deeply concerning. "So here's the deal," Parker continued, leaning casually against a wall. "You kidnapped us, which is rude, but your ship is amazing, and we're kind of enjoying the first contact experience now that the initial panic is over. How about we stop playing cat and mouse, and you explain why we're here?" Before Vorr could respond, Admiral Krell pushed his way to the front. "You are specimens for scientific study. You will surrender immediately or face the consequences." Parker raised an eyebrow. "Is Glitterface in charge? Because I think we've already demonstrated what we think of his consequences." At that moment, the ship's lights flickered. "What was that?" Vorr demanded. The third human, previously unseen, appeared on screen. This one was smaller, with features suggesting advanced age by human standards. "Sorry," the elder human said with a smile that somehow conveyed both innocence and mischief. "Just figured out your power distribution system. Fascinating design. Very efficient. Mind if I make a few improvements?" Vorr felt a headache building in all 3 of his brain lobes. "Don't touch anything else," he ordered, then turned to Krell. "Admiral, may I suggest a diplomatic approach before these humans improve us into oblivion?" Krell, still dripping with glitter, looked ready to explode, but when the lights flickered again, he grudgingly nodded. "Excellent." Parker clapped his hands together. "We'll expect you in 20 minutes. Unarmed, please. Don't worry about finding us. We'll send Sparkles to guide you." But the connection terminated. "Commander," Dr. Tuvok said quietly, "in all my years studying xenobiology, I've never seen any species adapt this quickly to new environments. It's as if they're designed for chaos." Vorr looked around at his glitter-covered superior, his immobilized security team, and his compromised ship systems. "Doctor," he replied, "I'm beginning to understand why the Galactic Council was so insistent about leaving them alone. By the next ship cycle. What had begun as a minor inconvenience had evolved into a full-blown crisis. The humans had not only secured the entire medical section but had expanded their territory to include Engineering Deck 3 and, inexplicably, the officers' recreational area. They've taken over the relaxation pods?" Vorr asked incredulously, studying the ship's schematic where alarmingly large sections were now highlighted in red. "Yes, Commander," replied his increasingly frazzled security chief. "They said, and I quote, 'These massage chairs are coming with us when we leave, non-negotiable.'" Admiral Krell paced furiously, his tail lashing dangerously close to a junior officer who kept inching away. "This is outrageous. 3 primitive bipeds have compromised nearly 20% of the most advanced warship in the Xenonite fleet." "How are they doing this?" Vorr wondered aloud, almost impressed despite himself. "Our security systems should be impenetrable." Systems analyst cleared her throat nervously. "We've analyzed their methods, sir. They're not hacking our systems in any traditional sense. They're exploiting design oversights, finding connections between systems that weren't intended to interact. It's as if they see our technology not as discrete systems but as building blocks." "Like children playing with construction toys," Dr. Tuvok added, entering the command center. "But with our advanced technology." Dr. Vorr acknowledged her with a nod. "Any progress on understanding their physiology at least?" "Fascinating results, Commander. Their adaptability isn't just behavioral, it's biological. Their bodies are already adjusting to our atmospheric composition. And their brain scans," she hesitated. "Well, the activity patterns are unlike anything I've seen. Highly inefficient by our standards, with multiple regions activating simultaneously for single tasks, but yet somehow resulting in creative problem-solving that our more organized neural structures don't achieve." Admiral Krell slammed a clawed fist down on the command table. "Enough scientific observations. I want solutions. You deploy the neural disruptors. Vorr spun around. Admiral, those haven't been properly tested on human physiology. The risk of... That's an order, Commander, Krell roared. I will not be humiliated by primitive apes. The command center fell silent as all eyes turned to Vorr. Slowly, reluctantly, he opened his mouth to relay the order. The ship lurched violently, throwing everyone off balance. Warning lights flashed as the gravity fluctuated. Report. Vorr shouted over the blaring alarms. Sir. Quantum core destabilization. Power fluctuations throughout the ship. Environmental systems failing on decks 5 through 9. Krell stumbled to the main console. What happened? Did the humans sabotage the core? Negative, Admiral, the engineer replied, frantically working controls. The quantum harmonizer was already showing stress fractures from our last transit. It's finally failing. The ship shuddered again. On the main screen, a diagram of the quantum core flashed red, its containment field weakening. Evacuation protocols, Vorr ordered. Prepare all escape vessels. Sir, the communications officer interrupted. We're receiving a transmission from Engineering Deck 2. The humans? Put it through. The screen split to show Aiden Parker, looking considerably more disheveled than before. Behind him, the elderly human was elbow-deep in what appeared to be a disassembled control panel. Hey there, Commander Crisis, Parker greeted. So, funny story. We were extending our little territory when we noticed your engine room was making a weird noise. Kind of a vorp about to explode sort of deal. Not great. What have you done? Krell demanded. Currently? Trying to save all our lives, Parker replied, his casual tone belied by the tension in his face. Your quantum whatever is unstable. But good news. Margaret here used to work on experimental fusion reactors back on Earth before retirement, and she thinks she can stabilize it. Impossible. The ship's chief engineer exclaimed. The quantum harmonizer requires years of specialized training to even understand, let alone repair. The elderly human, Margaret, didn't even look up from her work. It's just a fancy oscillation dampener with extra steps. Your flow regulators are over-engineered, but the principle is the same as my old coffee maker. Just need to bypass the tertiary buffer and reroute through there. The ship's violent shuddering eased slightly. That's just a temporary fix, Margaret called out. We need to access the main core to properly stabilize it. Vorr looked at his chief engineer, who reluctantly nodded. She's correct, Commander. That bypass has temporarily slowed the destabilization. Here's the deal, Parker said, suddenly serious. Your fancy ship is about to go boom. We can help fix it, but we're going to need access to the main engineering deck and your core schematics. Also, no more trying to capture us or experimenting on us or whatever creepy alien stuff you had planned. Dr. Tuvok stepped forward. Commander, allow me to coordinate with them. I believe I can work with these humans. Vorr nodded, ignoring Krell's sputtering protests. Go, take whatever resources you need. The next 3 hours were the most chaotic of Vorr's long career. The humans, now working alongside Dr. Tuvok and a reluctant engineering team, dismantled and rebuilt critical ship systems with alarming casualness. Their approach to the quantum technology was not so much calculated as intuitive. They simply tried configurations until something worked. That can't possibly, the chief engineer would begin, only to be interrupted by a system suddenly coming back online. This defies all established principles of quantum engineering, Dr. Tuvok observed, watching Margaret reroute power conduits in ways that violated several laws of physics, yet somehow functioned. Sometimes you gotta forget what you know and see what's actually there, Margaret replied with a shrug. Your systems are too logical. They don't account for quantum uncertainty. Meanwhile, Parker and the younger female human had somehow bypassed the security encryption on the core chamber itself. How did you crack a 13-layer quantum-locked security system? Vorr asked, genuinely curious. Parker grinned. We didn't. We found a maintenance access panel. You guys really should label those better. With a final series of adjustments that made the chief engineer practically faint with horror, the core stabilized. The warning lights ceased, and the ship's systems returned to normal parameters. Fixed, Margaret announced proudly, wiping grease from her hands onto what had once been Admiral Krell's ceremonial cape. Though you really should get that left rotor replaced at your next space garage. It's looking pretty worn. The engineering team stood in stunned silence. The humans had just casually solved a quantum core breach that should have been catastrophic, using methods that violated virtually every principle of Xenonite engineering. And they'd done it in 3 hours, with no prior knowledge of the technology. Dr. Tuvok summed it up perfectly. It appears humans don't solve problems the way we do because they don't see problems the way we do. Vorr looked at the 3 humans standing amid the disassembled remains of several priceless technological systems and couldn't decide whether to thank them or have them sedated for the safety of the galaxy. 1 week later, Commander Vorr stood before the Galactic Council's emergency session, trying not to fidget under the collective glare of 17 of the most powerful beings in the known universe. Let me ensure I understand correctly, intoned High Counselor Naxvala, her crystalline form shimmering with barely contained outrage. Not only did you violate our most sacred directive by abducting humans from Earth, but you then proceeded to negotiate with them? Vorr swallowed hard. Yes, Counselor. After they saved our ship from a quantum core breach that would have destroyed half the sector, it seemed reasonable. Reasonable? Another counselor sputtered, tendrils of psychic energy crackling around his gelatinous form. You allowed them to leave with 17 pieces of advanced technology. Technically, they had already reverse-engineered most of it, Vorr replied, then winced at the collective gasp from the council. And in exchange, they provided us with over 300 modifications to our existing systems. The efficiency improvements alone are unprecedented. Admiral Krell, standing rigidly beside him, had been uncharacteristically silent throughout the proceedings. The glitter from Sparkle's attack had proven unexpectedly resistant to removal technology. And the terms of this arrangement? Asked a counselor from the Shadow Realm, her voice echoing oddly. The humans agreed to return to Earth with no mention of our existence. In exchange, we provided them with selected technology and agreed to open diplomatic channels in 50 Earth years, when they've had time to mature. This is highly irregular, Naxvala admitted, though Vorr noted with relief that her crystalline surface had stopped vibrating with anger. However, given the alternative was likely human awareness of our existence spreads through their civilization prematurely. Dr. Tuvok, who had been permitted to attend as a scientific expert, stepped forward. If I may, counselors, my research suggests the original quarantine of Earth was misinterpreted over the millennia. The ancient records don't indicate that humans were quarantined to protect us from them. She activated a holographic display showing ancient text. The original directive was to protect them, to give them time to develop without interference. The ancient ones recognized their potential and feared what would happen if more aggressive species attempted to exploit or conquer them before they were ready. A thoughtful silence fell over the chamber. The humans I observed, Tuvok continued, aren't primitive at all. They're differently evolved. Where we developed linear, logical approaches to problem-solving, they developed lateral, chaotic creativity. They don't see problems as we do. They see possibilities. That makes them dangerous, hissed a reptilian counselor. That makes them valuable, Vorr countered, surprising himself with his vehemence. The female human, Margaret, solved quantum engineering problems in hours that our best minds have struggled with for decades. Not because she's more intelligent by our standards, but because she isn't constrained by our standards. The council chambers erupted in debate. After several minutes, High Counselor Naxvala raised a crystalline appendage for silence. This incident, while regrettable, has provided unexpected insights. Commander Vorr, your assessment of the humans? Vorr considered carefully. They are chaotic, impulsive, and almost pathologically curious. They break rules they don't understand simply to see what happens. Their approach to technology is like children with toys. They take things apart just to rebuild them differently. He paused. But they are also rational, capable of compassion, and extraordinarily adaptable. But the universe would be poorer without them. Very well, Nax Vala conceded. The quarantine stands, but modified. Limited contact may proceed according to the agreement you've negotiated. The humans will be given time to develop further before full diplomatic relations. As the council session adjourned, Krell finally broke his silence. I suppose I should be court-martialed for this disaster. Vorr glanced at him, noting how the admiral's usual arrogance had been replaced with something approaching humility. Perhaps. Or perhaps you unintentionally opened an important door. Later, in the officers' lounge, Vorr found himself staring out at the stars, nursing a flask of fermented nebula essence. Contemplating the humans again. Dr. Tuvok asked, joining him. I received a message from Parker before they returned to Earth, Vorr admitted. He sent us the design for something called a hot fudge sundae. Apparently, it's their version of fermented nebula essence. Tuvok laughed. I've already synthesized it. Quite delicious, actually. You know, Vorr mused, in my report to the fleet, I suggested we update the ancient warning. Oh? Whoa! Yes, the new directive should read, don't wake the humans unless you need help. But be prepared for them to improve your request in ways you never imagined and possibly redecorate your ship in the process. From the shelf behind them, Sparkles, who had somehow avoided decommissioning and become the unofficial mascot of the science deck, leaped happily and released a small puff of glitter onto Vorr's head. Some things, it seemed, would never change. But the universe, thanks to 3 unexpectedly awakened humans, certainly had.